Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see current affairs of 13th November 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 9 topics which are very much relevant to our UPSC. So now let us try to see which are the topics that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So first topic it is about negotiators at COP Conference of Parties 26 brainstorm over draft. So this article mainly talking about final conclusion of this COP 26. So here regarding this COP 26 there are two articles. One it is in first paper and next one we are going to discuss at last that appeared in our editorial. And editorial gave much insights than compared to that of this first article. But here we are going to see both of them. And next topic is about industrial output which mainly fall 2.6 percentage. Here we need to know about what is this index of industrial production, and also we need to know about which are those 8 core sectors. And next topic is about Chennai rain 5 times above normal. So in Chennai, because of this northeastern monsoon, or we can say like withdrawal or retreating monsoons. So because of this retreating monsoons, there is heavy rainfall that is mainly happening in Tamil Nadu state, and also there is low pressure area which is depression which is mainly created in this Bay of Bengal. So because of this it added more rainfall in this Chennai now, and this topic it is important from our geography. And now next topic is about Pak will consider transit facilities of Indian wheat. So what is a transit here? Transit it is nothing but movement of either people or things between the two countries. So it is called as a transit. So actually we know that if you see the location of Afghanistan, so here we have Pakistan and here we have Afghanistan. So this Afghanistan which is a landlocked country, it is not having direct opening to sea here. So if you want to go to this Afghanistan, actually Pakistan will not allow us to move in this Pakistan. Through this Pakistan is not allowing to reach this Afghanistan. So now we are mainly using this sea route. Okay, sea route mainly we had this Chabahar port in Iran, and from that Chabahar port we came up with number of roadways and railways, and we are connecting this Afghanistan in this route. Already we know that on map we are sharing a boundary with Afghanistan directly, but it mainly comes under this Pak occupied Kashmir area. So because of this India do not have sharing a direct boundary with Afghanistan. So because of this, to reach Afghanistan, we developed number of projects like roadways and as well as railways to reach this Afghanistan via this Chabahar port in Iran. So now here Pakistan says that yes, we are going to allow transit, that is movement of Indian wheat to Afghanistan. So this article is very important from our international relations, which mainly comes under this GS paper 2. And next topic it is about remote education. Remote education is inaccessible to most of the children. So recently one report released regarding this digital education. So in this report it mainly says that very less portion of children they have access to this online classes. Okay, so what is the background? Already you know that since May 2020 onwards, schools have been shut down due to this global pandemic COVID-19, and there was no choice for the schools, colleges and as well as universities to conduct offline classes, that is to make students to sit in the classrooms and to deliver the lectures. So they came with option of this online education by using different tools like Zoom, etc. So they came up with this online education. So if you want to attend online education, we need to have a smartphone or tablet or desktop or laptop, etc. And apart from that we also need internet connectivity. Okay, internet connection will be there, will be very much necessary. But what is the condition for the children who do not have these digital gadgets and there is no proper of internet facilities in remote areas? So that is the thing which mainly said in this topic. And next topic is about Kashi Corridor project. So here we need to focus on just what is this corridor project and where is this Kashi Vishwanath temple is located. So this topic will be important from our prelims. And next topic is about cyber crime went up by 500% during this global pandemic. So already we saw that there are a number of attacks which mainly done by Russians and as well as Chinese. And we saw that recently Maharashtra power grid also had been attacked by these cyber attacks. Okay, so because of this we can see that there is a lot of increase in the number of these cyber crimes. So what might be reasons? Now we are mainly moving towards this digital platforms. So due to this COVID-19 pandemic, instead of going to supermarkets, I will give you one basic example. Then you can understand and you can correlate the things. So for example, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to follow some guidelines. Okay, COVID-19 related guidelines. And people, especially, they are very much fear about this COVID-19 initially. And they started staying in houses. They are not moving out. So what about the groceries? Groceries are very important. Without groceries and without food, so there is no sustenance of life. So people, they started ordering food on online platforms. And if they are making order in this online platforms, home delivery is done. And not only this, even if you're talking about payment, so now most of the people, they are using this, going through this digital transaction by using some payment gateways. For example, you can say Paytm, Google Pay, Phone Pay, etc. So recent days, from last I think 5 to 6 months, so there is decreasing of transactions through this currency. That is mainly evident here. Even if you go to any supermarket, or even if you go for even vegetable vendors, they are using this UPI code, right? So because of using of this digital things and because of increasing the use of the data, that led to increasing of cyber crime threats. So in this way, you can connect many things and you can give examples in your daily life such that examiner will understand, yes, so and so candidate know the concept very well. And this topic, it is important from our cyber security and as well as defense, which mainly comes in the GS paper 3. And next topic is about NAM, that is non-alignment movement at 60 marks, age of Indian alignment. So here we are going to talk about what is this NAM, what is relevance of this NAM, and what are the objective, everything we are going to discuss. That will be very much relevant from our UPSC point of view. And this topic will be important from our international relations, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. And next topic, it is about the number game. So this topic, it is about this COP26, as I said, right? So this article will be important from environment and ecology, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss, and it is a brief introduction. Now let us try to see first topic. Title says negotiators at this COP26 brainstorm over draft. So finally in this COP26 they came up with this draft. Okay. So now let us try to see this topic. And one more important prelims or GK question I can say here is, so where this COP27 and COP28 they are going to be held. COP27 going to be held in Egypt. COP28 is going to be held in UAE. So you have to remember these facts. So this will be important from your general knowledge, and as well as you can get this type of questions if you are preparing for your state service commission examinations. Okay, so now let us try to see context. If you see context, it mainly says that the 2022 edition of this COP or the 27th COP will take place at Sharm El Sheikh, Egypt, and 28th edition, that is going to be held in 2023, take place in UAE. Okay, the 22nd, okay, 2022 edition, that is about 27th COP, it is going to be held in Egypt, and 28th edition of this COP, it is mainly going to be held in UAE. Okay, so this is a decision which may be taken here. And finally, the final agreement to conclude this COP26, it is elusive. That means we can say it is nothing like finalized. Okay, so if you're talking about details, it mainly says that even as the ongoing COP26 in Glasgow was reaching its conclusion on Friday evening in Glasgow. That is yesterday, the conclusion of this COP26 happened. So in this, negotiators from across 200 countries, they continued to be discussing about the polishing a draft agreement. So here in this COP26, they came up with a draft agreement. So in this draft agreement also, many countries, they are mainly having some discussions regarding the terms which are mainly present in this draft. And for the final agreement, all countries, they have to agree to every word in the text agreement. So this agreement mainly came up or drafted by this COP26. And the text is the synthesis of all the discussions since November 1st when this COP26 began. So whenever this COP26 began, so whatever the discussions they made, so based on this they came up with a draft agreement. So in this draft agreement, the terms and conditions, they need to be accepted by all these countries. And on these terms, there is a discussion or polishing that is happening. So in this way, we can say that COP26 will not unveil a treaty as in 2015 Paris Climate Deal. So in this Paris Climate Deal, they came up with a final agreement. So unlike this, in this COP26, so they will not unveil the treaty. So this is the thing which mainly said here. So if you're talking about this Paris Agreement, it mainly said that to keep the global temperatures beyond 2 degrees centigrade, and we need to keep furthermore efforts to decrease temperature to 1.5 degrees when we are comparing with these pre-industrial levels, right? So this is the thing that you need to remember. And one important thing I want to discuss here is promises not kept. So what are these promises? As you all know, if you see about these developing countries, they are mostly impacted because of this climate change and because of these emissions which are mainly already released by these developed countries. And now, for example, developing countries like India and as well as China, they are pushing especially for formal acknowledgement from the West, that is developed countries. And what happened? So whatever the agreement that is made by these developed countries, that had not been delivered. So what are the promises they made? They had not been came up. For example, what are those promises? For example, I can say about this climate finance, that is about $100 billion, that is about 1 trillion annually until 2020. So whatever the promise they made, okay, that is also called as polluter pay. That means whoever they are polluting, they need to pay for that. So developed countries already released emissions into atmosphere. So because of these emissions that are released by these developed countries, that led to climate change, right? So because of this climate change, they are, especially this developing and as well as least developed countries, they are mainly facing some issues, especially small island groups, because of increasing of sea level rise due to melting of glaciers. So for all these things here, polluter pay should be there. So that is about climate finance. So climate finance should be about $100 billion. It is not yet done by these developed countries. And as soon as developed countries, they have also promised to deliver this climate finance by 2023 to 24. But India and as well as several other low-income countries and developing countries, they demanded for financing that should be after this 2025 also. Because of this climate change, there will be large or huge impact that is seen, right? Mainly to address that, mainly to come up with some mitigation regarding that climate change, we need climate financing, and it should be more than 2025, that is beyond 2025 also. So this is just of this topic, and I hope it is clear now. Now let us try to see next topic. It is about industrial output. So here you need to know about IIP, Index of Industrial Production. Actually this topic will be important from your economy, which mainly comes under your GS paper 3. Now let's try to talk about what is this industrial output, why this industrial output mainly falls in month of this September. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that India's industrial output which mainly decreased by 2.6%, okay, in month of September. So in month of September there is 2.6% of decreasing of this industrial output. And also on other side we can see there will be increase, there is increasing of retail inflation. There is increasing of retail inflation here, and retail inflation which mainly increased by 4.4% in month of October. So because of this, whenever there is decreasing of industrial output, that means we can see there is decreasing of production. Okay, there is decreasing of production. So because of this decreasing of production, whenever there is increasing of demand in market, we can see here supply and demand in equilibrium that is seen. Okay, here production, or we can say supply is less. Whenever supply is less and whenever there is demand is increasing in market, we can say there will be like demand pull inflation. That is, we can see some retail inflation, and this retail inflation is about 4.48% in month of October. So this is according to data which is released by National Statistical Office. So if you see some details, it mainly says that, so compared to September 2020, so index of industrial production which mainly grew by 3.1% in September 2021, and now it recorded that is about 12% that is recorded in month of August. So if you are comparing with this index of industrial production, that we are seeing that, so if you are comparing with last year, now somewhat there is increasing of this index of industrial production that is seen. And if you see here high commodity prices, so why there is decreasing of production? Because, so whenever if any company, for example, I have a manufacturing company, let us take this is a manufacturing company, and from this company I am producing some goods. So to produce some goods I need some raw material, but what happened, the raw material price mainly increased in market. For example, earlier I used to get raw material for 100 rupees. But now to get that same raw material I need to invest 200 rupees. So if I have only 100 rupees means I can get only 50% of raw material that I used to get earlier. Right? So with that 50% I can produce, let us take only 50 goods now. Earlier with 100 rupees I can get the raw material and I used to make 100 goods earlier. But now because of increasing of high commodity prices or raw material prices, now with money I am having, I can get only 50% of raw material. So with this 50% of raw material I can prepare or I can manufacture only 50 goods here. So because of this there is decreasing of production from my company, I can say, right? So because of increasing of raw material cost, so I came up with decreasing of goods in the market. So because of this decrease in the goods of market, so for example there is demand for 100 goods, but I am releasing only 50 goods into this market, means so there is deficiency of 50 goods and there is increase in the demand for these 50 goods. Okay, so this is a thing I can say like that. Okay, so because of high commodity price and shortage of raw material, they are mainly impacting production and as well as overall growth of this IIP. So what happened, we can also connect this raw material availability with COVID-19. So during this COVID-19 condition, so we need to follow some COVID-19 related guidelines or protocol. So because of that, what are the supply chains that had been disrupted? So because of this supply chains which mainly disrupted, that led to shortage of these raw materials. Actually, if you see, for example, already you know that India, it is the home for generic materials. So I will give you one basic example such that you can understand concept. So here, if you take India, it is very much famous for this pharmaceutical companies. Especially India, it is mainly doing good in this generic goods or generic drugs. So to make these generic drugs, we need to have some active pharmaceutical ingredient. API is important. So without API, we can't go for manufacturing of any drug. Okay. So this is the main medicament, or we can say like main ingredient that need to be present in medicine. So these APIs that we are getting mainly from this China. So whenever the export of this API which may be disrupted by China, or whenever China which is mainly decreasing its production of this API, that will finally have effect on India's pharmaceutical companies. So that is the thing we can connect here. And if you're talking about some facts regarding index of industrial production, so in simple words I can say like IIP. So index of industrial production, which is mainly an indicator, it mainly measures the changes in the volume of production of industrial goods within a given period of time. So within a given period of time, so here we are mainly saying about changes in the volume of production of especially industrial products. And if you're talking about this index of industrial production, so it is mainly compiled and published by a monthly basis. Okay, so it is mainly compiled and published in a monthly basis by National Statistical Office. So here it is mainly released by National Statistical Office, and it is one important prelims fact. And it mainly comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, that is MOSPI. So here, if you're talking about this index of industrial production, which is a composite indicator, and this indicator mainly measures growth rate of industries. So it mainly includes three broad sectors, that is mining, manufacturing, and as well as electricity. Okay, so the base year is 2011 to 2012. If you're talking about what is the significance, so why we need this? Because many government agencies per se, I can say like Ministry of Finance and as well as Reserve Bank of India, they will use this data especially for policy making purposes. So whenever there is increasing, whenever, for example, let us take whenever there is decreasing of production of goods from this industries means, so government will give some incentives such that it will help for the increasing of production from these so and so companies, such that it will helpful mainly to tackle with this demand supply inequilibrium in market. So if government is not taking any steps mainly to make a demand supply equilibrium in the market, that means that will leads to inflation. So in inflation here, to control this inflation, either we can say like RBI will have some role, and as well as central government will have some role. So RBI will come up with this monetary policy, and here this central government will come up with this fiscal policy to control this inflation. So in this way, so this type of reports or this type of information will be mainly used by government agencies such that they can come up with a policy making purposes or better policy making decisions. And next one is IIP remains extremely relevant for the calculation of quarterly and as well as advanced GDP estimates, mainly to come up with these estimates. So here already you know that in our economy we have primarily three sectors: primary sector, tertiary sector, and as well as secondary sector. So primary sector deals with agriculture, secondary sector deals with manufacturing, and tertiary sector deals with services, right? So based on how these manufacturing sector and how this service sector and how this primary sector which is mainly performing, so based on that we can come up with this estimates of this GDP. For example, recently we have IMF estimate, World Bank estimate, and as well as RBI estimates. So there will be the different rating agencies also, they came up with these estimates like CRISIL, like Moody's, okay, etc., Standards and Poor, etc. And if you're talking about 8 core sectors, they mainly comprise about 40.2% of weight of items which mainly included in this index of industrial production. So those 8 sectors I already gave you mnemonic, that is FERNS 3C, okay, FERNS, FERNS 3C. So there are 8 words, right? So F for fertilizer, E for electricity, R for refinery, N for natural gas, S for steel, 1 C for coal, 1 C for crude oil, 1 C for cement. So you have to remember this order as well. That will be important from your prelims. So this is about this topic, and now let us move on to next topic. It is about Chennai rainfall. So Chennai rain 5 times above normal. So this article, it is very important from our geography point of view. Here, if you have completed your monsoon, okay, if you have completed your climate part in Indian geography, you will have studied about this monsoon. And this monsoon, to understand this, it is a mostly, I can say like, you need to understand concept. So it is a concept based topic. So as you all know, there are different factors which are mainly responsible for this monsoon. So whenever this monsoon winds, they will be hitting the coast of Kerala on June 1st, and they will be divided into 2 branches. One will be Arabian Sea and second one is Bay of Bengal branch. And finally they meet here and they will be moving like this. So after some time, what happened after some days, so there is a shifting of sun that is happened towards southwards. So because of the shifting of sun towards southwards, again we can see low pressure area which is created here. Earlier the low pressure area which used to created here on India, and it is shifting towards southwards. So because of this, winds mainly from high pressure area that will start move towards low pressure area. So this is called as retreating monsoons, or we can say northeastern monsoons. So this northeastern monsoons that will bring rainfall in this Tamil Nadu region. Right, so this is some concept, and now let us try to see what is the context. So if you see context, it mainly says that Chennai received nearly 5.5 times more than the normal rainfall between November 7th and November 12th. Normally we can see retreating monsoons during this period, and because of this retreating monsoon, now there is 5.5 times more rainfall that is seen in Chennai. So if you're talking about what are the details, it mainly says that Deputy Director General of Meteorology Chennai, they mainly said that city has received 46 centimeters of rainfall during these 6 days. It is about 491% high when we are comparing to that of normal. Okay, normally city will receive 10 centimeters of rainfall, but it received about 46 centimeters. And the meteorological department also said that another fresh low pressure area which is mainly creating already in northern side, we already saw there is low pressure area which mainly created. So because of this, that had influence on this Chennai rainfall, and now again the fresh notification of this meteorological department said that so there is low pressure area which is mainly likely to form over the South Andaman Sea by Saturday. So because of this, it may also intensify into depression over east, central and as well as adjoining southeast Bay of Bengal. So because of this also there might be increase in rainfall in this Chennai. So the topic now we are going to discuss about this northeastern monsoon. It is not present in today's Hindu newspaper. I took from Indian Express. Okay, so please don't try to search about this topic in Hindu. It is not there in Hindu. I took from Indian Express. To save your time, I said this secret. And if you are talking about this northeastern monsoon, so Chennai monsoon is largely about this northeastern monsoon. So in this northeastern monsoon, rainfall that occurs in this Chennai in the months of October to December. And if you are talking about this easterly winds, so if you see direction, so it is our east and as well as it is our west. It is north, it is south. So easterly winds, that means they started from east and they are flowing in this direction. So the names of the winds which mainly starts from where they are starting and where they are blowing. Okay. So these easterly winds, they starts from this mid-October and as well as, and sometimes it may also delay till November. Okay. And these mainly started moving from, for example, if you see the location of India like this. So easterly winds, they will be moving in this direction. So whenever they are moving in this direction, they will be carrying some moisture here in this Bay of Bengal, such that will be causing rainfall in this area. So because of this, northeastern monsoons, they are also known as primary monsoon of Tamil Nadu. Because why they are called as primary monsoon? So let me draw the diagram to make you understand the concept. So here we have Western Ghats, right? So whenever the southwest monsoon, they are hitting the coast of this Kerala, and they are moving in these two branches, and here we have this Western Ghats, such that the winds, they are mainly hitting this Western Ghats and they will be leading to ample amount of rainfall here, and here this Tamil Nadu will comes under this rain shadow region. So because of this northeast monsoons which mainly causes ample amount of rainfall in this Tamil Nadu. So because of this, we can say it is a primary monsoon of Tamil Nadu. And this northeast monsoon which mainly brings good amount of and as well as sufficient rainfall in this state. So if you see southwest monsoon, which is mainly helps to maintain groundwater tables, but these northeastern monsoon will helps to increase the groundwater table or elevates the table in this Tamil Nadu. So this is gist of this topic, and I hope it is much clear. Now let us try to see next topic. It is about Pakistan will consider transit facilities of Indian wheat. It is mainly talking about transit. Transit means nothing but movement of people or things. So now let us try to see what is the context and what happened and what are the details and some important facts regarding this World Food Program, that is World Food Program, in short WFP. So if you see context, it mainly says that Pakistan will favorably consider this transit facilities of if Indian wheat is sent to Afghanistan. So said Pakistan Prime Minister. So Pakistan Prime Minister, he said that whenever India want to export or whenever India want to send wheat, that is Indian wheat to Afghanistan, now Pakistan which said that it is going to allow. It is going to allow for the movement of this wheat through Pakistan to reach this Afghanistan. So if you see some details, it mainly says that Taliban's administration welcomed the offer and reiterating its call for urgent assistance. So already you know that Afghanistan, which is under control of this Taliban. So Taliban came up with formation of this interim government. So interim government contains some terrorist individuals as well. So it is one of cause of concern. Now in Taliban, they are facing extreme hunger crisis. Extreme hunger that is mainly seen in this Afghanistan. So because of this, now India mainly decided to send some amount of Indian wheat. So already in the recent summit which mainly held, that is Delhi Dialogue on Afghanistan, so they said that yes, we need to provide some humanitarian assistance to this Afghanistan. So as part of that, now India decided to send Indian wheat to Afghanistan, and now Pakistan said that if India is supposed to send Indian wheat and we are going to provide way to reach Afghanistan, that is transit, right? So the Prime Minister conveyed that in current context, Pakistan would favorably consider this request by Afghan brothers, especially for transportation of this wheat offered by India through Pakistan on exceptional basis for humanitarian purposes. So for humanitarian purpose, now Pakistan it is agreeing for the movement of Indian wheat to Afghanistan via Pakistan. And next one is the United Nations World Food Program, that is WFP, had been planning to send a consignment of wheat from India to deal with unfolding hunger crisis in Afghanistan. So mainly to deal with this hunger crisis in Afghanistan, United Nations World Food Program which mainly planned to send some consignment of Indian wheat. And this one is the announcement which mainly came after a day Pakistan held this Troika Plus regional dialogue. So here you need to understand this Troika Plus, because in prelims you can get a question like Troika Plus is seen recently in news, what it is related to, and you can get options like A, B, C, D. So if you're talking about this Troika Plus meeting on Afghanistan, so here the US, Russia, China, Pakistan, it is a grouping of US, Russia, China, Pakistan regarding Afghan peace process. And now let us try to talk about some facts regarding this United Nations, the World Food Program. So the name itself, it is saying that it is a food program. That means it is one of the leading humanitarian organization, and it is mainly focusing on saving of lives and as well as changing of lives of people by delivering some food assistance in emergencies, and also working with communities to improve in nutrition as well as to build resilience. And here this World Food Program which mainly founded in 1961. So it mainly founded in 1961 by Food and Agriculture Organizations and United Nations General Assembly. And if you're talking about headquarters, which mainly located in Rome, Italy. So if you're talking about this, the World Food Program, okay, so it is also a member of this United Nations Sustainable Development, okay. And you can easily read these facts. So if I read these facts, you might be saying that yes, ma'am is reading everything, she's not explaining everything, and I'm getting comments like that as well. So here, if you're talking about this World Food Program, there is nothing to explain you actually. So you can easily remember them and you can easily read them. Those facts are facts. I can't explain anything, right? They are not like concepts to explain. And next topic, it is about the remote education was inaccessible to most of the children. So remote education, or we can say like online education, so it is inaccessible. Already we discussed about number of articles, editorials regarding this online learning and as well as a digital divide. So this is the one survey which mainly says that yes, digital divide is absolutely present. So if you write this data anyway, then it will be very useful to write answer regarding digital divide and as well as online learning, what is the impact, everything. So students who have cleared this year prelims, though, they need to focus on this online learning for sure, and they will be getting question for 100% in your mains regarding this online education. So now let us try to see context. So only 20% of school age children in India, they had access to remote education during this pandemic. Okay, only 20% students they have access. Then now let us imagine how students they lost their learning, and as well as how we need to fill that learning gap now. So after that, recently children they started going to school, right? So even my kids they started going to school, and there is a very much difficult for teachers to make them to revise all those things that they lost in their memory. For example, even my kids forgotten alphabets. So here this is a great challenge for teachers actually. When it engage with children they lost most of the concentration, and they had increased concentration playing online games and as well as mobile phones, watching videos in mobiles, etc. So now again children are also facing a challenge like to how to sit long hours in school and how to focus at least 6 to 8 hours in schools, right? So now let us try to see some important details. If you see details, it mainly says that in fact 38% of households they said at least one child had dropped out of school completely due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So how can we relate this point? So already you know that many people they lost their job. Okay, so if they are having job means they will be getting some salary, and that will be helpful for supporting of their livelihood and existence of life. But due to the loss of job because of many companies, many industries, many construction sites, they have been stalled their works, and many informal workers they lost their jobs. So because of this losing of the jobs, here now whenever they are getting a least job also, they need to join that. Even though they are getting a very low salary also, they are mainly coming forward to join that job irrespective of what the education they had. So in this context here, many children who are mainly present in homes due to this online learning and as well as shutdown of schools, and they started going along with their parents in search of work. So because of this, at least one child had dropped out of school completely because they engaged in work to help their family for their sustenance. And the survey also released, this survey released on Friday, and it came up with some key highlights. It mainly says that although digital connectivity shot up to 40% during pandemic, and also government came up with number of measures to make available devices, that is to be devices, but there is low access to these devices, and in some areas there is a very poor signal, especially in some remote areas. And we discussed number of articles like children they are moving up the hill and as well as down the hill mainly in search of internet, and children they are sharing one digital gadget with a number of people. And even I saw one news in our regional TV channel, like especially in some villages who are having some good fame, they will be having some digital gadgets, like, so those people are given responsibility mainly to continue the children to go for this online education like that. Okay, so here many villages they are not having proper internet network, and as well as there is a poor signal and there is a high cost. Okay, so because of all these things, here children they didn't attended this online classes. And apart from that, among the children who are aged between 5 to 18 years, it found that 80% of those who are enrolled in the schools prior to pandemic, they did not receive any education services. So many children they do not get any education services during this school closure. And also the situation was significantly worse among those who are mainly from this lower economic classes. So children who are coming from this lower economic classes, their situation is very very bad. Already their parents do not they are illiterate, they do not have proper education. So because of those things, so there was no one to tell about the children regarding how to study and what to study, even to make them to study for at least 1 hour a day. So because of this, specifically in this lower socio-economic classes, so these children, they were most vulnerable. And this one is among 20% who received education. Out of this, only 55% they have access to this live online classes, and most of the times they will go for recorded classes. And this one is 3/4 of the students, they had work sent to them over a smartphone, usually via WhatsApp, and 61% via text messages. And this one is almost 70% had contact their teachers via phone calls only. Due to improper network, they do not connect to the teachers through live classes, so they started using this text messages, voice messages, and as well as phone calls. So this is about this topic. And one more thing I want to say is, I'm very glad to announce that we came up with test series as well, that is prelims test series and also mains answer writing practice. And this time, this mains answer writing, it is mainly focused on our static syllabus like GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4, along with essays, and also we are focusing on case studies. And questions will be given and the timetable will be given based on our UPSC syllabus format. First one is polity. First one, it is like after completing art and culture, we are moving to modern history, like, and after that post independent, after that world history, like that. So detailed syllabus and also micro listing of topics is given, and daily one question will be given for you. And here we are also giving you model answer and proper evaluation. Each and every word you written will be evaluated. And next one is there is a one-to-one mentorship, and the cost is very affordable. And this is also 1-year course. In this 1 year, you are going to cover each nook and corner of your syllabus, and you are going to practice 26 essays and 27 case studies. So this is highly economical. If you want, you can join this course. And we are also coming up with entire foundation course. So entire foundation course, you can join that, but as of now, essay and CSAT, it is left. And in this course of time, we are also covering that essay and as well as that CSAT portion as well. So this foundation course, it is also very affordable. It is around 60,000 rupees, and in this 60,000 rupees, you will be having more than 700 hours of video classes, and there will be one-to-one mentoring, and PDFs of that class will be given, that is handouts will be given. And apart from that, one-to-one mentoring is there. It also includes even prelims test series and as well as mains answer writing practice as well. So these are very affordable. So you can join these courses, and details will be given from most probably by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We are going to release those details. Okay. So I am informing you in advance. So now let us try to see next topic. It is about preempt to inaugurate Kashi Corridor project. That is about Kashi Corridor project. So here you need to focus on what is this. That's it. Nothing more than that. So if you see context, it mainly says that our Prime Minister Modi ji will inaugurate the Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor project on December 13 in Varanasi. So on December 13th, our Prime Minister, he is going to inaugurate this Kashi Vishwanath Temple Corridor project. So now let us try to see some details of that project. So if you see details, it mainly says that the proposed 50 feet corridor will directly connect Ganga's Manikarnika and Lalita Ghat. Okay, it mainly connects Ganga's Manikarnika and Lalita Ghat to Kashi Vishwanath Jyotirlinga temple. So actually this Kashi Vishwanath, it is nothing but Shiva temple, that is Jyotirlinga temple, and here this corridor which mainly connects Ganga's Manikarnika and Lalit Ghat. Actually I thought to include the picture, but I forgot that picture. So please Google that picture, then you can understand easily where it is connecting. And along the corridor, pilgrims and as well as travelers, they will see a newly built museum as well. And this museum mainly depicts about Varanasi's ancient history and as well as culture of Varanasi. And apart from this, new yagashalas for religious functions, they are also proposed under this project. And next one is the project also includes even lodging for priests and as well as volunteers, pilgrims together. And next one is a massive auditorium for gatherings and as well as meetings and for temple functionings also present there. And next one is food street to serve tourists and pilgrims, luscious Banarasi and as well as Awadhi dishes, they will be available there. And the total cost of this project is about 600 crore rupees. And if you're talking about some facts regarding this temple, this Kashi Vishwanath temple located on the left bank of holy river Ganga. You have to remember this. So on the banks of river Ganga, we have this Kashi Vishwanath temple, and it mainly surrounded by a narrow and small callistopic lanes. And as a result, here whenever there is a large crowds of people or pilgrims, they are coming, it is a very congested place actually. So because of this, this is mainly this project or this corridor mainly proposed, and this corridor which is mainly trying to ease the congestion and to provide pilgrims and as well as travelers with better amenities. For example, wider and as well as cleaner roads, lanes, better lighting, better street lights, and to provide clean drinking water, etc. So this is about this topic. Now let us move on to next topic. It is about cyber crime went up by 500% during pandemic. Okay, so it is about cyber crimes. So here our general, that is our defense chief, that is General Rawat, he mainly came up with some statements. So now let us try to see those things. So this article will be important from our defense and as well as the science and technology, which comes in DS paper 3 under this cyber threats or cyber attacks, etc. So if you see context, it mainly says that the chief of defense staff, that is CDS, nothing but our General Bipin Rawat, he mainly focused on there is a need for data protection. Okay, he mainly focused on data protection because there is increasing of cyber threats in the country. So if you see details, it mainly says that while a national cyber security strategy is an offering, the country also dared to need a data protection law, and with cyber criminals increasingly weaponizing data as a tool against national security. So now here cyber attacks which are mainly seeing, cyber criminals are mainly getting the data and they are trying to attack almost all the information and as well as almost all the areas. So because of this, it is having a threat for our national security. And our general, he also mainly addressing inaugural address for 14th edition of this COCON. This COCON, it is a annual cyber security hacking conference. This mainly organized by Kerala Police. And here in this context, he mainly said that cyber crimes in India had been increased almost 500% in India during this pandemic itself. Because during this pandemic, there is increasing the use of internet, increasing the use of digital things, and many people, they started working from homes. Okay, so because of all these things, there is increasing of cyber crimes, that is almost 500%. And there are emerging threats that are mainly from our drones, ransomware, internet of things, etc. So because of this, we need to have a prior environment to handle all those things. So this is a thing which mainly said. And if you see concerns which are mainly posed by this general here is, he said that IT Act, Information Act of 2000, which mainly dealt with the cyber security and as well as cyber crimes, it is not equipped to consider new age challenges. So it is 2000's law. But in 2021, there are a number of changes that we came up with. So because of this, we need to also include new age challenges or new era challenges in this act. And apart from that, he also focused that we need this personal data protection bill. So we need to pass this personal data protection bill for sure. Okay, so this is about this topic. And now let us try to see next topic. It is about the number game. So this article mainly talking about this COP, Conference of Parties 26, and this article gave much insights. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So this will be important from our environment and ecology, which mainly comes under our GS paper 3. And this topic will be at most important from your mains. Now let us try to see. Central theme, it mainly says that in spite of the risk it poses, the climate crisis is yet to get political resonance in India. Okay, so we are having many risks because of this climate change. For example, if you see in the case of India itself, so we are facing increasing of melting of glaciers, increasing the melting of Himalayas. So because of this, there is increasing of sea, I can say like river water flow. So because of this increase in river water flow, the sediments which are carrying, they are also increased. So because of this, whenever they are carrying much sediments, they will be deposited. So whenever they are depositing, that will lead to decreasing of carrying capacity. On one side, there is increasing of river water flow. On one side, there is decreasing of river capacity. That means it will lead to changing of direction of river. So because of this changing of direction of a river, that will lead to most of the areas that will be flooded, right? And apart from this, whenever these rivers, they are coming and they are joining the sea, there is increasing of sea level water, okay, sea water level. Then what happens? So most of the coast that will be inundated. So because of this coast which mainly inundated, the people used to live in this area, they will be moving in towards inside. That will lead to socio-political conflicts. And apart from that, so because of this climate change and global warming, we are also seeing altering patterns of monsoons as well. So here monsoon withdrawal had been increased. We discussed number of topics regarding that. And apart from that, so in some areas there is heavy rainfall and some areas there is drought. So because of this drought, that will affect food security of people. And because of global warming, that is also having overall impact on agriculture. And also there are many reports that there is increasing of glacial lakes. And also there is increasing of landslides. So all these things which are mainly connected to this climate change. For example, now in Chennai, there is heavy rainfall because of developing of low pressure area in Bay of Bengal because of climate change. Because of increasing the temperature, or we can say the temperature of sea water, that will lead to acidification, ocean acidification. So because of this ocean acidification, which mainly impacts biodiversity which is living in that area. So we can connect this climate change to number of issues. So now let us try to see what is written in this article. So here we also need political resonance. That means from political also, or from the political parties also, and the agenda of this political parties, they need to focus on even climate change here. So this is the thing which mainly said in this topic actually. So if you're talking about this COP26, so this 26th United Nations Conference of Parties in Glasgow, Scotland may not be a significant outcome. Yes, yesterday, there is conclusion of this, but there is no agreement like Paris climate deal that we came up. So because of this, we can say that this COP26, it is not much significant outcome. So prior to this summit, there are many things happened and many things we discussed, right? That United States and as well as many countries, they said that they are going to come up with this net zero, and it also forced countries like India to come up with this net zero emissions, right? So because of all these things, also these countries, they put force on this China and as well as India. So they are the major greenhouse gas emitters. So first country, it is USA, as you all know. Second country is China, and third country is India. And these developed countries, they put this China, India and also some major greenhouse gas emitters on defense. Okay, defense here. And they asked that you also need to come up with this type of commitments. And their argument mainly said that actually the main argument which is mainly come up by these developing countries. For example, India said that, so here we are facing climate crisis because of West. Already these West, that is developed countries, they released as much as possible carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere, and that led to global warming. And to mitigate this global warming and as well as climate impact or the climate change impact, it is very difficult for these developing countries and as well as least developed countries. So we need to get some support from these developed countries like technology and as well as finances. So this is the thing which mainly said by developing countries. So while China came up with this net zero target, it is 2060, and India also finally came up with this net zero target, that is 2070. And apart from this, India also came up with 5-fold principles, mainly to combat this climate change. Already we discussed in our yesterday's lecture. Right, so we came up with some targets that we need to achieve in this 2030, like we are mainly moving towards renewable energy sources, and we are going to try to decrease our fossil fuel dependence, etc. There are 5 principles. And as well as India, it is now the 3rd largest emitter of this carbon dioxide, and gave itself 50 years of deadline target, that is now 2021, right? So we said that we are going to achieve this carbon neutrality by 2070, that means 50 years of deadline we came up with this. So here the countries which are highest emitter of this carbon dioxide emissions, whenever they came up with this deadlines, that is 50 years deadlines, means we cannot prevent this temperature from rising beyond the dangerous level. So this is the thing which mainly said. And however, India also had indicated that for its 2030 goals, it needs $1 trillion mainly to come up with some technology and access to combat this climate change. It is mainly asking we need climate finance of $1 trillion. So India, it also must be remembered that India, it is about $2 trillion economy, and also we are expecting that it will become $5 trillion by 2024 to 25, and we are going to achieve about $10 trillion of our economy by 2030. So in this context, India will be, whenever we are focusing on development, that means we are going to release carbon dioxide emissions for sure. So because of this, what can be done, what is the need? So we need to go for quicker transition from non-renewable sources towards, we need to go for renewable sources. That is from fossil fuels to, we need to move towards cleaner energy or green energy here. And we need to also get proper technology from these developed countries. And next one is, what are the tariff barriers are present regarding export and import of this technology, regarding this renewable energy, that need to be removed, and we need to have a proper access for this better, cleaner technology. So these are the things that can be done. So apart from this, in India, we need to also have a political will. So without political will, whatever the targets we have to complete within this 2030, that will not be done. So this is the thing which mainly said in the conclusion. So now let us try to see next topic. It is about NAM at 60 marks an age of Indian alignment. So here we are mainly focusing on this NAM. We are going to understand what is this NAM, what are the objectives, etc., how it is relevant now. So we are going to discuss this, and this will be important from our international relations, which mainly comes in a GS paper too, and this will be important from your mains point of view, not from prelims. So now let us try to talk about this topic. So if you see NAM, it is nothing but non-alignment movement. Okay, so it is non-alignment movement. So this movement, which is a forum of 120 developing countries. So it is not regarding these developed countries, but it is regarding this developing world states or developing countries. And this group mainly started in year 1961. So if you are talking about this 1960, what happened during this 1960s? There was a Cold War. So it was a time of Cold War. So during this Cold War time, during 1960, there are two power blocks. Okay, two power blocks. First one is USA. Second one is USSR. USA is there and USSR. So these are the two power blocks during this Cold War era. Then what happened? Many countries are asked whether they will align towards USA or whether they will align towards USSR. So at that time in 1961, we came up with this non-alignment movement. Okay, so here these countries says that we are not going to align towards USA or we are not going to align towards Russia. We will be neutral or we will be stable, and we will focus on development of our countries because these are developing countries. So if you see about formation of this NAM emerged in the context of the wave of decolonization, which mainly followed this World War II. So after this World War II, so this Cold War era started. So in this Cold War era, so that led to emergence of this NAM. And next one is, it was created by this Yugoslavia's president and India's first prime minister, that is Jawaharlal Nehru, and next one is Egypt's second president, that is Gamal Abdel Nasser, Ghana's first president, that is Kwame Nkrumah, next one is Indonesia's first president, that is Sukarno. So you need to remember these personalities for sure. And next one is all these 5 leaders, they believe that developing countries should not help either Western or Eastern blocs in Cold War. So they need to focus on development of their countries. So now let us try to understand what is its relevance today. So if you see about its relevance today, so one of the challenges of this NAM in 21st century has been to reassess its identity and purpose of its post-Cold War era. So they are mainly focusing on different challenges. Actually, in this, if you see about this NAM in 21st century, so we are having different challenges when we are comparing with that of earlier Cold War era during this 1960s. And the movement has continued to advocate international cooperation, multilateralism, and as well as national self-determination. But now there is increasing of vocal against inequalities across the world. So here, if you are talking about this NAM, the stated aim of this NAM, it is to provide some voice for these developing countries and to encourage these countries. So if you are talking about at present situation, what is happening? So here now power blocks. Who are the power blocks? US on one side and China and Russia on one side. China and Russia on one side and US is one side. And when US and China, there is trade war that is happening. And here recently in yesterday's or day before yesterday's lecture, that China said that so because of this AUKUS, whenever they are providing some technology for submarines for Australia, and because of increasing the surveillance in Indo-Pacific region, China said that it will lead to a new Cold War era. So there is escalating of tension in this Indo-Pacific region, and we can see there is a Chinese aggressive expansionist policy, right? And next one is there is large scale of migration in Europe and Asia due to unstable regimes, and as well as we are seeing there are many ethnic conflicts that are mainly happening in our different parts of our world. For example, if you see Jews, and if you see Rohingyas in Myanmar, and if you see Uyghurs Muslims in China, Xinjiang province, so across the world we are seeing ethnic conflict. And apart from this, there is issue of global climate change also seeing, and we can also connect with this recent COP26 here. And next one is there is also changing of US policies. US policies are changing. For example, policies of protectionism, policies to prevent prevalent terrorism and nuclearization in the Middle East. And we can also add about Iran. Iran, it is also increasing its enriched uranium that is helpful for preparation of these nuclear weapons. And this one is formation of multiple regional economic groupings, for example TTP and as well as RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, etc. So because of all these things, now we are seeing the multilateral bodies like WTO, WHO, they are losing the relevance. So this is the present situation now. Okay, so this is gist of this topic. And I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to Rathod's IAS and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. Thank you so much.